So this video is an introduction to the art of modeling in Maya. And what we're going to do is create a simple set, somewhere for our animated characters to act and perform. So the first thing we're going to do is go ahead and create a new project. So you go to File, Project Window, and then click New, type in the name of your new project, and then go Accept down there. Then you're going to set to it, set project, and in this case I'm setting to the project I just created. Simple set 28th of August or 29th of August 2018. So now that we've created a project and set to it, we want to start building the walls of our set. So let's go ahead and go to Create, Polygon Primitives, Plane, and open up the options box and make sure you have interactive creation turned off because it's a pain in the neck. So let's go to options box here and we're going to set width and height to 40 units. And then go ahead and go to create. So there we go. We've got a plane, and we're going to go ahead and actually that's going to be our ground plane. So we're going to go ahead and name that ground like that, because you always want to name everything. Now that we've created a ground plane, with it still selected, let's go ahead and go Control D to duplicate it. And you'll see we've got a new object here called ground 1. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new name for that. I'm going to call it wall 1, because this in fact is going to be our wall. So we're now going to use the rotate tool, that's this tool over here, and holding down the J key with my left hand, I'm going to drag, so I'm going to select this control here, and what the J key does is it will allow me to snap the object to the grid. So I should get now a perfect whoops. Dear me, I have to try and do that again. There we go. Now I should have a perfect 90-degree snap. And rotate Z is -90. So that is working. So now I'm going to select the move tool. That's this one over here. And I'm going to hold down the X key, which will allow me to again snap it to the grid so that there's no gap between the floor and the wall. And wait a minute. Sorry, I don't seem to have undone the renaming there. So let me just call that wall 1. There we go. And now let's duplicate that. So again, Control D to duplicate. That gives me wall 2. And again, if I go to rotate and hold down the J key and then select the rotate X here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 snaps. Then press W for move. Again, hold down X, and that will allow me to snap it to the grid. There we go. And now, in theory, we have a perfect set with no gap between the wall and the floor. Or at least we have the walls of a set anyway. So now that we've done that, let's go ahead and save it, because you always want to save your work when you've got to a good stopping off place, or anytime you have a feeling of success. So I'm going to go ahead and save this as simple set _ version 1. Okay. Now let's go ahead and build first thing we're going to do is put this in a layer so that we can get it out of the way. So I'm just going to select the whole thing, go to Layers, Create Empty Layer, double click on that, and I'm going to call this Walls. Actually, you know what, I'll call it Set. Let's call it Set Layer. Save, and right click, Add Selected Objects, and now I can turn that off and on and off and on as much as I like. So I'm just going to leave it off for now. So now we're going to go ahead and create a table. So let's start with the legs. So I'm going to go Create Polygon Primitives, Cube, Options Box. And because we want our leg to be tall and skinny, we need to adjust the settings here. And the first thing I'm going to do is go Edit Reset Settings, just to get everything back to the default setting. And we want this chair leg to be 10 units high with 5 divisions in the height. There we go. And then go ahead and hit create. And so now we're going to have a table leg, which we're now going to shape. And the first thing I'm going to do is name it. So instead of pcube1, I'm going to name this leg 1. And now I want to go into component mode. So Maya has two basic modeling modes. One is object mode, where you can move an object around. And the other is component mode, where you can adjust the individual components that make up the object. So I'm going to right click on this and go to vertex, and that will allow me to adjust the vertices on this leg. And what I want is for this leg to kind of taper at the bottom. So I'm going to drag select these four little vertices here, and I want to go to the scale tool there. Sorry, this one here. There's the scale tool. And to do this, I want my mouse to hover over this little cube here, then hold down Shift with my left thumb, and then with my middle mouse button, I'm going to slide that to the left in order to taper that off. So what we're left with is a table leg that tapers at the bottom. Then I can do the same thing with these guys here, then hold down Shift and middle mouse, and it will taper some more, but not as much. Drag select these guys here, do the same thing, Shift with my left mouse, with my left thumb, middle mouse. Again, the same thing, Shift, middle mouse. There we go. And now I've got the beginnings of an elegant table leg. So once I'm happy with that, I'm going to right click on it, go back to object mode. So now I've got the object again. And if I hit W, I can move that around. And there's my table leg. Now I'm going to hit the space bar. And I'm going to go through the orthographic top view. That's here, over here. And select it. And what I want to do now is to move it 4 squares east and south of the origin, holding down the X key, snapping it to the grid. So that's 1, there we go, 4 to the east, and then 4 to the south. Let's see, let's make sure I've got it correct. There we go. And yeah, that's exactly where I want it to be. So now that we've done that, let's go ahead and duplicate the table. So I'm going to go Control D, which will create another table, another leg. You can see there it's called leg 2. And in the orthographic top view, let's hold down X again and then shunt that over there. So it's 4 grid units to the south and west. And then let's do that again, Control D. Holding down X, so we snap to the grid. Whoops. There we go. And then Control D again. Holding down X, so we snap to the grid. There we go. So now we've got 4 legs for our table. Okay. So now let's drag select them all, and holding down the X key, let's move those down in the Y-axis so that they're sitting just below the surface of the grid like that. There we go. So now we need to create a tabletop. So let's go back to the create button. Let's go create polygon primitives cube, open up the options box, edit reset settings, and let's make it 9 units wide and 9 units deep. And with width divisions, let's go for 9, and depth divisions, let's also go for 9, and then let's go create. Okay. Now that's actually a little too small, so let's go into the shapes into the inputs tab down here. You can always go back into inputs and change things even once you've made it. So we could delete this and create a new one, or we can just change the inputs down here. So under width, let's try 17, and under depth, let's try 17. And now we should have something that fits the tabletop quite neatly. Now let's go back to the Move tool. That's W on our keyboard. There we go. And let's hold down the X key. And let's see if we can snap that to the top of the legs. Okay, it's not snapping, so we may have to try something else. So what we want to do is move the pivot point on this tabletop. So to do that, press Insert on your keyboard, and you'll see that the control will change here to this little yellow circle. So holding down the V key with your left hand, so assuming you're right-handed, I am going to move the pivot point up to the top of the object. And then what I can do is press Insert again, and I'm now out of pivot point mode. I'm back in Move mode. So now I can hold down the X key with my left hand, and with my left mouse just snap that tabletop down to the legs. And now what we should find is that if I go to let's make sure I'm in the modeling menu here. But if I press 4 on my keyboard to go to transparent mode, and then if I hit 5 to go to vertex, right-click and go 5, right-click and go to vertex mode, I should find that these two polygons, vertices, are in exactly the same place, which is what we want, where these, the tabletop and the leg, are now occupying exactly the same physical space on the screen. So if I now press 5 again, I go back to grey shade mode. And if I press right click and go back to object mode, I've got my object mode back in the table. So now if I press V for visibility to turn my set layer on, I can see that the tabletop is, or the table is kind of floating below the set. So what I want to do is shift select these objects that I've created, and then I'm going to go and turn them into one thing. So I'm going to go mesh combine, and now I can hold down the X key and grid snap this to the top of my set, and it's slightly floating in the middle of the air, but I'm just going to manually bring that down just so it's sitting there on the table. And now we have a table and a very, very simple set.